the third, the third and final session of the Plan Ferndale Virtual Summit Climate Action. My name is Ryan Myers-Johnson, and I am really excited to be in dialogue with you all tonight as we discuss climate action in Ferndale and envision some very progressive actions for the future. I am going to be joined by a number of colleagues who will lead the discussion, including Katrina Kelly, Justin Lyons, Matthew Riley, Claire Dion, and Kathleen Duffy from Smith Group, among others. We will start off with some introductions on what is Plan Ferndale, where we're at and where we're going with this plan, followed by some great information from the Smith Group team. And then we will have some breakout sessions in which we will discuss and plan and vision with you some climate actions for Ferndale's future. But before we go deep into discussion, I'm going to review some of our rules of engagement. If you've been attending the other Plan Ferndale sessions, you will have already heard these rules, but that means that you'll be a champion for helping us to embody these rules throughout our discussion today. So first and foremost, well, actually, I just want to note, we'll also be utilizing Miro, which you see in the share screen coming up, and you will also be able to take part in utilizing Miro. We'll use this format to capture a lot of your viewpoints. But starting right off with some of those rules of engagement for discourse of dignity. First off, take space, make space. So the whole point of this virtual summit is to really hear from you and to be in dialogue about what your vision is for Ferndale. So with that, we want you to take space, but as you take space, remember to make space for others, particularly those who maybe this is their first meeting or maybe they're shy. So ask yourself as you're diving into these conversations, am I the only one talking consistently? And if that's so, maybe think about laying the groundwork for other people to let their voice be heard. Next, we want to really focus on productive conversation and address issues, not people. So let's think about what are things that we can solve. We're not here to fix individuals or critique people, but we're here to envision ideas for Ferndale's master plan. Next, listen carefully and deeply. I know everyone has already blocked out time and dedicated time for this, so we don't really have to go deep into that because we're already listening carefully and deeply. Next, do not freeze each other in time. Allow others and ourselves to change and grow. And that really includes the city of Ferndale, especially veteran community members who have been to lots of community meetings. We may sometimes be thinking about what happened in the last meeting, but these sessions are really about the city of Ferndale hearing your visions and having the opportunity to evolve and grow and expand on their master plan. So let's let each other, as well as the design team that we're talking about, continue to evolve throughout this conversation. Next, challenge oppressive remarks and behaviors, but not blame or shame. Given that we're all quite progressive, we probably are going to have to really think about oppressive remarks and behaviors. But if that does happen, let's go ahead and challenge those with facts. Again, not focusing in on individuals, but addressing issues without blaming or shaming individuals. With that, we're thinking about practicing both and thinking, allowing space for others to have opinions that may differ from yours, but also accepting that those are worthy to be talked about. Number 7, if a statement, well, at least on number 7 on my view, if a statement has already been made, feel free to utilize the time to explore new issues and opportunities. With the finite amount of time that we have, we want to make sure that we hear as much as possible. So if someone has said something that you agree with, just go ahead and let that be. Feel free to expand on those and deepen the conversation. But if what you have to say is identical to what someone has already said, then you don't need to say it. So moving on to number 8, let's look for solutions and productivity. We really want to hear what your visions are and what your thoughts are. And this session is about finding those solutions and being productive so that we can move Ferndale's climate action plan further. Next, expect and accept discomfort and unfinished business. So this is a big topic and we have a short amount of time to dive into it. This is just the beginning of the conversation. We'll go through many opportunities that you will have at the end of the session to continue the conversation. So tonight, we won't be able to solve everything, but we really want to begin this conversation and go as deep as we can. But keep in mind, everything won't be resolved today. Next, I don't think we really need to go too deeply into this, but basically, let's keep it quite dignified and civil. So disorderly conduct from the audience that disrupts the meeting, or any sort of abusive language or bullying or personal attacks, it goes without saying, you'll be removed from the meeting. But we haven't had anything like that happen. And I know that everyone here is really looking to contribute to this plan in a productive way. So I doubt we're gonna need that one. And then, of course, please, throughout the conversation, utilize the chat. Think about these rules of engagement as you are in the chat as well. Those rules still apply. Use it as much as you like. But again, remember, taking space, making space, being respectful, and addressing issues as opposed to people, looking for progressive solutions to that. So with that said, I am going to pass the conversation over to Kathleen, who is going to give an overview of what this plan is all about and where we're at.
Thanks, Ryan. Katrina's operating our screen for right now. We're going to share with you this link momentarily. We just wanted to get through some of the background stuff first, but Katrina, if you can go to the left there, and we'll just run through some of these slides down that left-hand column, and then we will get going here and give you all the link to this mural board. So thank you all for joining us. As many of you have participated in other sessions before, we've got 3 different plans that we're working on. The master land use plan, parks and rec plan are updated every 5 years. And the climate action plan is a new layer of that. So we're excited to have that as part of this process for the first time. And are really thrilled to dig in deep with you on that this session. Thus far, we've had sessions on unpacking development and equitable open space, and have been really fruitful conversations, and we appreciate all of you that have participated in those already. This is just the beginning of the process, and we're excited to keep the ball rolling after tonight. And so we hope that if you can zoom in on that little timeline, Katrina, thanks. We plan to come back to you in the future on probably in the winter time on draft recommendations. So after we've spoken with you tonight, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to participate beyond this. We encourage you to go to planferndale.com and check out all the news there. You can sign up for emails, follow the project as it goes along, take surveys as they come up. We also have a board that's shown here with these colorful boxes where you can join the online discussion board. So from the website, you can get all of those different links here and check out all of this. We're going to be making sure that all of the materials from tonight are exported and shared via the website. We're going to take the online board that we're using tonight in this session and convert it into a survey so that people who aren't here tonight can participate. And we're going to transfer all the different sessions into boards that we can share and have in person for people to add their thoughts at City Hall and the library. So stay tuned. We have several things coming shortly. So check out that website. This process is really focused on 3 key components: people, place, and systems. So I think as we're integrating the master land use plan with the parks and rec plan and this new climate action plan, we want to make sure that we're covering all of those things and really prioritizing people in this process. I think sometimes we get so focused on the built environment in these processes that we forget about why we're planning. And so people are at the heart of this, and equity and sustainability and resiliency are key goals of the community and the city as a whole. And we're really excited to join everyone here tonight to try and make some progress on those things. I think if you scroll down here, there's a trade-offs. We really have a lot that we're trying to balance. And I think as a master plan that's updated every 5 years, things are constantly changing. So we want to make sure we understand where we've been since the last plan was adopted in 2017 and where we're going, but realizing that the city, when it makes decisions, has to balance a variety of different policies and interests. And we want to make sure that everyone is included and welcome in that. And so finally, before I toss it to Katrina, we have some priorities listed here below related to all those different users of space and of the city in general. And when we think about equity and thinking about all those different people, everyone has a different perspective. And as Ryan said, we want to make sure that all of those voices are heard and understood so that we can address everyone's need and have accessible space and open and welcoming community continue to really thrive on what makes Ferndale great. So with that, I'm gonna toss it to Katrina. We've got the link there in the chat. I hope that we can have an awesome conversation about some climate goals and tasks that people can take. So if you're unable to join the mural board, Katrina will be, as she describes the next few slides, jumping around and showing you those as well, so that you can follow along and get ready to join our breakout sessions momentarily following Katrina's introduction. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katrina.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. First, everyone, welcome again to the Climate Summit. Hopefully, I know a lot of you have joined all three of them, so we appreciate you taking the time, especially as I know many people were at work or school during the day. So thanks for continuing to lean in. Today's session is going to be a little bit about level setting, if you will. So I'm a bit of the internal climate geek. I'm from the Smith Group side, and I've already gotten to touch base with a lot of you in Ferndale. We've been super excited about the environmental literacy that your community already has. As many of you know, Ferndale itself is committed to a carbon neutral future as a city operation, but we've also heard from the Ferndale Environmental Council, who's already been able to inform us on a lot of the activities that are going on. Still, change is going to take absolutely everyone in the community. So today we're asking everyone to kind of lean in, no matter what your environmental background is. If you're just sort of leaping in and coming to hear about a bit about the science today, we're going to walk you through it. But today is also going to be a bit of a climate therapy session, if you will. We're really going to walk through the opportunities for change, but we also want to hear what those barriers are in your personal life. A lot of this is leading up to the plan at the end, if you will. So we want to hear what information you know, what you need to know, what's easy for your life, what you can do going forward, and also where are there gaps already in information. It's important. And whenever we talk about climate change, we know that the changes we have to make need to happen today. So to help get us motivated, we've enlisted the help of someone who I think is a really motivating speaker already. Elena Deegan-Krause is going to be joining us right now to give us a speech to kick us off to talk about why it's important from an activist and a student environmental perspective to really join in the climate argument. So without further ado, thank you so much for coming, Elena, and I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you, Katrina. As Katrina mentioned, my name is Elena Deegan-Krause, and I'm really excited to support and participate in the summit on Ferndale's Climate Action Plan. I just turned 18, and I'm a Ferndale resident and a Ferndale High School graduate. I'm also an active leader in the Oakland County chapter of the climate justice organization Sunrise Movement, where I have helped campaign for climate-focused candidates on local and national levels, supported the Oakland County Climate Campaign, and recently started working on increasing climate education in Ferndale schools. I spend a large part of my time on climate activism because I worry about the effects of climate change. But many of you, or those you know, may be skeptical that addressing climate change is something the city of Ferndale should prioritize when there are so many other issues we could justifiably focus on. I'm going to explain why I see climate change as one of the present day's most important issues, and that's why I'm thrilled that Ferndale has committed to net zero greenhouse gases for the entire city by 2035. One reason to worry about climate change is that with every small increase in global temperature, the frequency and severity of negative effects on our lives and those of many we love also increases. The recent storms and flooding that devastated many neighborhoods in the area is a great example of the severe precipitation that climate change has already caused and will continue to cause in Michigan. More extreme heat events and large swings in Great Lake water levels as a result of climate change will also have massive effects on related jobs, and heat waves pose health risks to many vulnerable Michiganders. Although there is a good chance that for those of you attending the summit today, the incremental effects of 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius warming are not going to be your biggest challenges in the future, the rest of the world doesn't have it as easy as Michigan. The World Health Organization estimates that between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause, by a conservative estimate, about 5 million extra human deaths during that 20-year period alone, and considerably more if climate change continues unchecked. And these statistics on the horrific global effects of climate change don't include the much larger numbers of people who will be impoverished and displaced by the climate crisis. A third reason that we should work to prevent climate change is that the climate system is complex and contains many tipping points that could cause even worse disasters. There are many natural systems that keep our climate stable and able to support the humans and ecosystems that are using it currently. And a tipping point is a critical threshold of greenhouse gas emissions beyond which one of these crucial natural systems starts to break down and cause warming that's much harder to control. The system of permanently frozen ground in cold areas of the earth, for example, keeps a lot of greenhouse gases trapped in the ground, but if we allow this permafrost to melt, we will allow climate change that can send global temperatures much higher than the 2 degrees Celsius that we're already worried about. Because the more that any single system is pushed, the more global warming and general disruption occurs, the more likely it is that other tipping points and environmental system collapses, the more likely it is they could be set off as well. And very concerningly, many of these tipping points may be reached if the global temperature increases by less than 2 degrees over pre-industrial levels. There are also human tipping points. The increase in climate disasters and scarcity of resources may lead to mass migrations and fight over resources that could end in devastating wars as we push the limit of the resources that the planet can provide for the basic needs of humans. Though climate tipping points are not as certain as some of the other incremental effects of climate change, they are very real possibilities that make me extremely worried for the future, both mine and that of people around the globe. There are 3 standards I think we need to look at when judging the climate action plan that Ferndale is putting together. One is sufficiency. For the climate to stop warming, all of human society must reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions, and the sooner we do it, the less the planet warms. Ferndale has committed to this essential goal of getting the entire city to net zero emissions by 2035, and we need to make sure the policies and plans that the city implements will actually get us there within this timeframe, something likely to require large changes and lots of investment. Because we have no time to lose in working towards this goal, another standard we should judge the climate plan by is effectiveness. We must prioritize policies and actions that decrease greenhouse gases a lot per the cost and effort exerted. Things like a Woodward Road diet instead of a campaign to get people just to turn off their lights. Figuring out what the best use of Ferndale's resources can be done with data and research that the wonderful planning team is already working with. Finally, Ferndale's climate plan must be equitable. Win-win solutions to fighting climate change do exist in some areas, but even with effective city policies, we will only get sufficient reductions in greenhouse gases with real sacrifices to the standard of living of some people in the community. These burdens, such as buying new heating equipment, replacing appliances, or using public transit instead of a car, should be borne by Ferndale residents who can afford them, not those living in poverty and struggling to make basic ends meet. By eliminating greenhouse gas emissions in Ferndale by 2035, we also prevent my generation from shouldering all the burden of dealing with climate systems as they spiral out of control. I am excited that I've been asked to lend my voice to this plan, and I encourage you to participate with your questions and perspectives in this summit, and to participate in the future as our Ferndale community works to make this climate plan a reality. I'm now going to pass it back off to Katrina to kick off the workshop.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, and so motivating. So Kathleen is going to take over on the screen so I can help steer us around some of the hardcore level setting, if you will. And then we're going to kind of stop bombarding you with facts and start listening in to what we want to do as a community. Before we get into that, we're going to do some quick introductions today, if you will, of some experts who have leaned in to be able to help act as environmental facilitators today. So Matt and Claire specifically, I'm going to call on you. Do you have a chance to say hello, introduce yourself? Claire, why don't we kick it off to you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Claire Dion. I'm the Zero Waste Program Coordinator for the City of Ferndale. And my main role at the city is helping to increase the city's waste diversion and waste recovery. That can mean increasing recycling and composting programs through businesses and residents. So I look forward to kind of talking about how we can improve our waste recovery when it comes to our climate action plan.
Fantastic. And we also have Matt Riley here as well too. Matt, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Matt Riley. I'm on the Ferndale Environmental Sustainability Commission. I also own a utility scale solar company that's founded in Michigan, has been helping consumers energy and DTE distribute our energy throughout the state with solar generation.
Fantastic. So let's level set for a few minutes to talk about where we're at today. As we go through the activities today, you've already met Kathleen. We have Alex Huff from our team who's also on the line. We also have Ryan, who you've met before, but Matt and Claire and I will also be here to ask the super hardcore environmental questions. We might not know them all, but we've at least tried to assemble some people who can really answer some nitty-gritty details, if you will. Okay, the topic of today, if we will, whenever we zoom into this kind of globe with the hands around it, if you will, is really what we're going to be talking about today, right? The Earth's resources are shared, so what we've got to do is essentially just figure out how we can all work together to protect them for today's generation and for the future generations, as Elena so eloquently motivated us to do so today. So that's going to be the theme of this session today, really dividing up responsibility and conquering it. Whenever we talk about environmental literacy, the ways that we're really talking about it concretely at the moment in Ferndale are through the lens of future and current carbon emissions. So I hope some of you are seeing these pie charts right at the top of the screen. Ferndale's done something really amazing, which is connect to the global goals, but officially, they've joined the international communities of local and environmental governments who are working to report to United Nations directly on their progress. Ferndale is one of 23 municipalities around the world who has pledged to do so. So the leadership and the responsibility and the excitingness about decarbonizing and mitigating climate change impacts here is not only huge for you as a community, but is also amazing about what you can share for other communities in broader Michigan. Whenever we look at the broader sense of emissions, Ferndale's doing really well. Whenever you first committed to the overall climate emissions, we did something called a baseline inventory assessment, if you will, really doing a level setting of understanding how energy supply, how building demand, how transportation demand, and how over individual behaviors came together to create what we call a carbon footprint, if you will. Today, Ferndale sits around 250,000 megatons of carbon equivalent. If we look at business as usual going forward, we can see that the actions of Ferndale residents are super positive already. When we look out to the future, you're already going to be going all the way down to 164,000 megatons by 2030. However, where we really need to go in terms of offsetting and level setting with your carbon footprint is getting down to 94,000 tons, if you will. So what does that mean? You've got to kind of double down on already the actions that you're doing today. So today we need to figure out what that doubling down looks like and how we can achieve it. Just to go into a little bit of this, because I know it's confusing to scroll through pie charts, if you will, and try and translate in real time what these numbers mean. We've assembled some slides below that are going to just break down the content into what the major actions are going to be, if you will. So we're just going to scroll down into here. The biggest thing that needs to happen, and that actually isn't happening with the quickness that we need to, is the energy supply. That's what's going into your homes and going into your cars, if you will. When we look at electricity and the overall gas supplies that are heating your homes and buildings, as well as powering your schools, homes, and hospitals, we can actually see that the grid intensity, whilst very exciting, is decarbonizing for 2050, that actually we need it to be decarbonizing by about 80% by 2030. So already as a community, that signals to us something. We've got to connect directly to clean energy supplies. Matt is also going to go through a little bit of this in our breakout sessions to walk us through a little bit as what that can look like and how that can be financially savvy for you as homeowners. But something we also have to do is a broader trend, if you've heard it or not, which is called electrification. Now, electrification coupled with this statement, but the grid needs to be decarbonizing faster, can be very confusing. But just from the simple perspective, it shouldn't be. We're talking in terms of efficiency, if you will. So imagine you have a gas-fired boiler at your house and your house is heated by gas, if you will. Simply switching to an electric heater is going to be an easier and more efficient fuel source, no matter what's happening in the grid side of things. So something that's going to happen within this broader plan is we're going to have to require the electrification of new commercial buildings. Vehicles are probably an easy one to understand, right? We already know that gas is a carbon intensive vehicle. And we also know as broader Americans, right, we tend to use single-use vehicle cars. I myself also used to be one of these people until 2 years ago when I got myself an EV. I live in Pittsburgh, full disclosure, and I constantly tell people, if I can bike around this hilly city, you can too. We're going to have to be figuring out, though, how it's stressful for people to not be able to switch to more diverse modes of transportation. We know it's not easy for everyone to do so. So some of today's discussion also is going to circle around mobility. What do we need to do to diversify away from that single-use passenger vehicle? The big thing that we need to do too is focus on the residential sector, you and your homes, if you will, right? We need to focus on reducing the energy use of intensity. I have a bit of a lame joke that I'm going to make, actually, if you will, which is we often talk about megawatts and kilowatts in terms of energy, but we should be talking about negawatts, those electrons that are never used whatsoever. Those are the ones that are the most sustainable. We've got to be focusing on our homes, and that doesn't just have to do with fuel source, but that focuses a lot on the sustainable behaviors around this. Insulation, switching out your windows, lowering your thermostat. There's a bunch of things that we can do. Overall, we've got to focus that in two folds, if you will, that energy use reduction intensity. We have to facilitate and understand how existing commercial buildings, but also existing residential buildings can both come together and really identify mechanisms that can really help to lower that energy use intensity. So the easiest way to understand how we can get this extra 50% of reductions, if you will, is really moving away from what we call a footprint to a handprint. An energy footprint used to be something that we often say in the 90s and the mid 2000s, if you will, right? It refers to that movement of us walking upon the planet, if you will, right? You want to reduce your impact. But these are the ways that we would just focus on creating or lowering our impact or behavior, if you will. But today we've got to go even farther than that. We've got to really focus on creating what we call a handprint. How do you create that positive behavior change for both you and the generation that's going to come next? How do you do more than reduce, and how do you lean in to create positive change, if you will? Throughout all of these session boards that you see here, we've listed some examples of really sustainable actions that you can take. Some of them are things that people don't know about, if you will. For instance, electric heating tends to be one that we've talked about in sessions all over the country. We don't want to get stuck on any of them, but we really do want to hear today from a financial standpoint, an information standpoint, and even a logistical standpoint. Where are your pain points, and how can we better celebrate or move towards the actions that are going to motivate the change that we need to make? So we are going to move into sessions where we can digest all of this. We know it's a lot from a climate perspective, if you will. We know already, let's see, it looks like there's some questions already coming through. Kathleen, do we want to answer some of the questions now or move straight into the breakouts?
Yeah, I think it would be great. I think Elster I think Evelyn has a question. We don't want to give DTE that kind of monopoly. Is there a way to avoid this? I thought Matt might be able to chime in on some of the ideas we have on that.
Ideas to avoid the monopoly of the utility. Ooh, that's a good question.
Matt, why don't you start with maybe talking about just individual avoiding energy usage by, for instance, rooftop solar, if you will, as opposed to community-wide solar?
Yeah, before even thinking about rooftop solar, I think it's important to understand the foundation of change and what creates change. I'm a huge Albert Einstein fan, being that I'm dyslexic, and he was also very dyslexic. Although I do refute one of his most famous quotes, that being his definition of insanity. You may have heard it before, says doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. I don't call that insanity, I just call that desperation, because we think the formula to create change is action result. It starts before action. So before we start thinking about what actions we can take, we need to increase our awareness around what's going on in our house and what type of electricity. I love how you said that, Katrina, what we're not using. And how we can increase that amount of electricity that we're not using. So to relate that to DTE, the first question that I would have for people, and I don't know if we can do it like a raise of hands, or I wonder how many people actually understand or have looked at their own bills. Like, because most people just do one thing with their bills. We pay them. Because it's a monopoly, we don't have a choice. Like, who can we go to? If we want to buy electricity from somewhere else right now, there's no one. So does anyone look at their bills, understand what tariff they are on? Tariff is the utility word for rate structure.
We've got some hands raised.
Awesome, that's great. That's the first step in making a difference, is making yourself aware of what's going in and out of your house in electricity, and also how you're charged for it. I'm just, for example, before thinking about solar panels or new energy generation, our government and structure has been concerned with efficiencies, and the easiest way to reduce electricity is buy an LED bulb, plug it in. It's like, it's a proven thing. We know it works. That may be a long answer for what is the way we can avoid a monopoly. Policy is the answer to that, and regulation. That's been in the works for 30 years. And we all know that government does not move very fast. So that is going to take some time to knock down, although that is being worked on extensively in almost every state. So how can we do it as individuals? Be aware of your bills. Be aware of your rate structure and what affects them. When are you billed for how much electricity? Are you on a variable rate or a fixed rate? Does your rate change for the seasons or the time of the day? That will help inform your behaviors.
And also how, Matt, if people are really pushing, as you said, for not only a fixed tariff price to make sure their energy is equitable, but also opting for green supply, how does that almost force the hand of an entity like DTE to start talking to people like you even more? Yeah,
I love the reference of a footprint to a handprint, because I consider each solar system, I call it the thumbprint effect, which is of course part of the hand. That being said, there is not two systems that are identical, just like a thumbprint. And there's not one system over here that makes sense over there. So for some people, a fixed rate of electricity might make the most sense. For some people, it might not. It might make sense depending on, let's just say, if electricity is the most expensive during the day, and we have a situation with a stay-at-home partner, that stay-at-home partner does the washer and dryer during the day. Maybe it makes more sense to push that electrical consumption out to the beginning or the end of the day. So there's a thumbprint effect on like the house. It does matter on how we live our lives. I don't think that exact answered your question though. Or did that answer your question?
No, that definitely answered it. Where my head was going to too, and something that we've talked about with the Environmental Council as well, is in these sessions, we're also keen on hearing just how many people would be interested in opting into a completely green program. There are some more facetious, if you will, energy arrangements as well too, right? We've been talking about what community cooperatives would look like, and even what a virtual commercial account where everyone buys into the same microgrid supply via one account We've heard from people all over Michigan that the limits to community solar at 5 kilowatts are really tricky for everyone. So one of the things that we're going to be interested in evaluating today is just how many people would be interested, I think, in opting in something that was Ferndale specific, if it is a community cooperative and sort of the same type of movement that Ann Arbor itself is starting to investigate, or if it's just easier to really focus on a community if there's a financial mechanism that we need to take advantage of, right? How can we use those new grant opportunities that are coming out from Build Back Better? So a bit of today, in the spirit of climate change, if you will, is going to be taking the temperature of the community. We're keen to hear exactly how much you want to push the boundary, if you will, on that independence around energy, if you will.
I believe there was another part of that question that asked, like, does participating in DTEs, I believe it's called their distributed generation program. They've been calling hundreds and thousands of their customers and asking to raise their rates, I believe 4 cents per kilowatt hour, and to receive electricity from renewable resource. Does that actually do something? I can't definitively say that because I haven't done the analysis myself, although I do understand electricity, and we probably all went through some sort of science class, and we know electricity travels in the path of least resistance, which generally means when electricity is created in some area, it is immediately distributed to the greater area, unless it is specifically designed for transmission purposes, which are very different types of projects, and usually they transmit across state lines. So if I opt into DTE's program, increase my rates 4 cents because they tell me I'm getting wind from their farms up in the thumb, you are participating financially because you're helping distributed energy. I don't know this for a fact, but I don't believe you'd be receiving electricity from the wind farms up in the thumb.
Yeah, exactly. A huge part of what you can do as a community is just install on your own rooftop, if you will, right? A lot of people move towards solar on their homes. And of course, there's going to be something that you pay upfront for yourself. But I installed, for instance, solar panel as well as a small lithium ion battery at my own house, simply to do a little technique that we call energy arbitrage. Energy arbitrage means I've installed a system so I can specifically avoid using the utility grid as much as possible. The more I can treat my house as almost an independent power producer, the easier it is for me to feel that I'm directly connecting to those green electrons and helping to, if I'm honest, consume them myself. Full disclosure, I'm a true energy nerd, so I even have a switch where I can power off on my main circuit breaker, if you will, connect myself to the battery when needed. My local electrician did it though. It wasn't a huge lift. But the capital investment in solar panels certainly was. I have a small home, 1,700 square feet, and it still was about $15,000 upfront for solar connections. I own them for life, but that's a burden that took me 10 years to save up for. So I think that's something that we want to be conscious of too. Do a lot of people have solar already on their homes? These are the kind of questions that we want to get through today. Are you simply not interested in making that capital upfront investment? Are you wanting to stay in your homes for a long time so that you'll receive that payback? I always tell anyone, if you're planning on staying in your home longer than 7 years, it financially will make sense for you to install rooftop solar as long as you don't have a lot of shade. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I'm conscious we're getting tons of energy questions, but there's loads of other opportunities on which we can really move towards a positive environmental footprint as well too. So before we go into breakout, something I just want to bring up a little bit as well too is a little bit of the opportunity to localize even more of our activities that we talked about, if you will. Claire, do you want to talk just a little bit about the community waste programs, et cetera, and what people can be doing to reduce already the waste footprint?
Yeah, sure. We are in the process of launching a residential and business compost pilot program. So this is something that we received grant funding for and are allowing a small group of residents to participate in. This is a drop-off program where residents can collect food waste from their home and deliver it to the drop-off to help divert that waste from the landfill so that it's not going into their trash to then head off to the landfill, but instead can, get turned back into healthy soil that can, be used to grow our next set of crops. So we have 400 residents participating in this program. And throughout the course of the year, we're going to collect a lot of data on how much waste we're collecting so that we can really see the numbers of how much tonnage of organic material we're diverting from the landfill. And by the end of the year, hopefully we can, understand a little bit more about how a program like this works at a small scale, and then be able to scale it up for, eventually the entire community to participate in. As well, for the business side of things, we have about 8 businesses participating in a very similar type of program, really targeting restaurants and businesses that, produce a lot of food waste so that we can capture that waste to turn it back into compost. So I think the program will be really successful, and we'll get to learn a lot over the course of this next year so that we can grow it exponentially in the future.
Awesome. It's been so exciting to hear about Ferndale's waste programs. I think it's something that we're really bad at in my city, and I've already literally taken Claire's advice and given it to our city leaders here. It's such a phenomenal example of leadership. But I'm really excited too to hear how many people now would consider composting, knowing it's going to roll out over the next year. It's going to be something that's very interesting. We really wanted to hear from a local restaurant owner. So if now is the moment to ask, actually, let me pause. Is anyone from a restaurant here? I knew it was a long shot. Busy people, it's at nighttime, they're busy hours. But we're hoping in the future too that maybe there can be opportunities to more concretely connect these programs to restaurants as well too, for opportunities of food rescues, etc. We see a comment from Dave. Oh, we're still stuck on energy too. Why don't we then go back?
I'd just like to make one quick comment on the importance of reduction of waste and reduction of everything, because we have set significant goals for ourselves as a community and as a country and as people to really make a difference. And when we just focus on energy or production, it only brings you half the way. It has to be like reduction and production conversation happening, which is a very large scope, which is why it's great that we are able to have forums like this and conversations with yourselves, everyone here, and experts in both fields of production and production. So it's awesome that we get to have this platform and this discussion.
Absolutely. Okay, great. We still see questions coming in. Still going through a little bit on energy. Kathleen, what do you think? I feel it might be
I feel like we should go to the breakout rooms.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, Ryan, does anyone want to walk through how the breakouts work a little bit? Just give people some guidance.
Yeah, so I believe that we do have a slide that kind of goes through murals. So if Alex is able to talk through that, we can do that as well. But I will just mention briefly, we're going to divide everyone up into sections. Each section, we're going to be utilizing the same mural board, which you've been looking at throughout the presentation. We'll be marking that board up, and you will also receive instructions on how to mark the board up. But each breakout session will have a facilitator as well as sort of an official scribe to help those conversations happen. We do have some specific exercises that are really targeted towards getting some feedback that we can incorporate specifically into the plan, but these breakout sessions will be the time where you can go into deeper conversation with some of these subject matter experts. So I'm going to pass it over to Alex, who is going to give us a little tutorial in the mural session. When we do, however, go into the breakout rooms, facilitators, please remember to hit record in your sessions, and then community members, let's also continue to embrace our rules of engagement, taking space and making space.
Thanks, Ryan. So Kathleen is sharing this kind of area of the mural board, but we did drop the mural link into the chat, and Kathleen just did that again. So if you're not already in there, you don't have to sign up or download anything. You can just put your name, put your initials, put whatever. drop in and join the mural board. And if you scroll down, the first thing that you'll see popping up on the right is these helpful hints about ways to add sticky notes and add text, but we've already provided some sticky notes in there for you. And if you are on a mobile device or aren't feeling comfortable with the technology, don't fret. Just turn on your mic, turn on your camera, and we will kind of take notes on everything that you're saying. If you are in the mural board, once you figure out what breakout room you are in, it will show like a number. Once we're all in our spaces, you can find that board that's related. And then also, once you're in the room, the facilitator or the person taking notes will share their screen, so we can all be looking at the same content at the same time. So don't worry, everything's locked down and you can't mess it up. You can only make it better as we move forward. So with that, we can start the process of breaking out. Bear with us a bit as we kind of shift around virtually in our chairs.
Yeah, it'll take a couple minutes to get everyone in the room. You'll have to click join when the prompt comes up. And if there's too many in another room, you might get switched to another room. So it'll just take a couple minutes. But with that, let's go.
Hey, Kevin, are you just hanging out or do you want to move to a room? You're doing something else? No pressure.
It's all of us again.
We're the only people who returned.
You can't get away from us, Greg.
I wouldn't want to. You guys have a great conversation here. It's been great listening to y'all.
Well, thank you for joining and for protecting Sven's plants. We're excited that you're going to help them, keep them safe.
Absolutely. I love cone flowers.
Great.
Before coming to Smith Group, I worked with Oakland County, and we had some native planting on the county property, and that was definitely an issue of the kind of education of operations and maintenance of native planting, that there's a lot of benefits, but it makes it's more work than just mowing a lawn. So it is a back and forth discussion on kind of understanding not just installing these things, but how do we manage them as well.
Yeah, maintaining them over time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. Has everyone trickled in?
Everyone should be back from the rooms now. We did the forced close of the rooms. I think we're all
Okay.
back.
Amazing. Okay, well, thanks everyone. I think what we're actually going to do here, because I'm conscious that we spent a lot of time, I think I'm going to ask all of our facilitators to kind of just summarize what we heard from the rooms. Doesn't need to be big. We have 5 takeaways, but to really see if we forgot about everything. I think, as we say, the way that we're going to do this is our big takeaways. We're going to kind of put them at the top. How do we take advantage of our current strengths? What are the big 5 things that we want to do? And what are the big weaknesses that we talked about in a room? They're kind of preventing us. So as always, we say the first part is, what are we proud of? What are we celebrating? What's the second part that we've got to overcome within the plan? No pressure on the other groups, but our group was really great. So.
No, ours was the best.
Oh man, you're gonna say that. Well, why don't you kick it off for us, Kathleen? No, sorry, I didn't mean to put pressure on you.
I'm gonna toss it to Matt, who was the technical facilitator, and I was just the note taker.
Awesome. Matt,
Sure,
hit us.
we can, yeah. So the first part here is, I said, what are we?
What is this?
What are the
What are
5 biggest things
strengths?
people are doing?
5 biggest things we're already doing. Please feel
Waste.
free.
Waste was a big
Yeah.
thing. Recycling, compost,
Water conservation or water awareness. We're doing rain barrels already.
right. Lots of
Um,
awareness, I think, on that front. Can that count as 5?
It looks like, I mean, it's at least 3.
Can we zoom them in a little bit more, Kathleen, on your list? Thanks. Perfect.
Anything else, Matt?
Yeah,
that we talked about?
recycling, compost, water, and then we also have like buying from environmentally friendly sources. So like being conscious of the money that we spend, kind of like the municipal environmental purchasing policy, but for ourselves.
Amazing.
Right. So our idea was that the city should have an environmental purchasing person so on behalf of the city that's buying that, because we're already doing that as consumers, trying to balance the environmental trade-offs of refilling at, what was the name of the business on Hilton that I need to go to? Again, remind me.
I didn't know about that place either. What was the name of that?
Walking lightly.
Walking lightly. So refill you can take in your own containers there and get those refilled. But we'd love to have that at the city scale as well.
Amazing. These are such cool ideas.
We also talked about having a newsletter with information for the citizens on how to navigate and how to make changes.
Such a great idea.
Yeah, one of the
Information
things
is
we
always
were
the
doing
cheapest
is,
mechanism of change. Oh, sorry, go ahead,
yeah,
Matt.
I would say one of the things we are doing is there is a good amount of like awareness around what's happening. Is we want to increase that awareness, like in public communications, community engagement, things like that.
Okay. Before we go to the negative, why don't we focus on the celebrations from the other groups as well? Let's stick on the same track. Does that kind of summarize it from your side? Anything else from your group?
I think so.
Okay, awesome. We can go last, my group. Ryan, what group? I'm conscious that I'm sorry, trying to scroll fast. Were you in a group facilitating as well too?
I was working with Claire. So
Ooh.
together, I actually learned a lot. Our board is a little bit disorganized. So I'll just kind of go from memory, and Claire, feel free to kind of jump in as well. But I think, people were doing kind of a lot. We kind of hit almost every topic, I think, from, there was some really great strategies around reducing water usage. So a lot of people were capturing rainwater and utilizing that rainwater in gardens. There was, I think, quite a few people had eliminated sprinkler use. There was a lot of consolidation of driving and, carpooling, walking, biking when possible. And so people were pretty excited about most of the things on the list. We also spent a significant time talking about some of the challenges. There was a strong desire for sure for things like solar panels, but I guess we won't get into the challenges right now, but the wins were pretty great, I think, in particular around stormwater and around reducing the use of single-use plastics as much as possible, around electricity, turning off lights. So pretty exciting room all around. And Claire, if you have anything to add, please do.
Yeah, I heard a couple folks also talking about reducing their food waste. We had some passionate composters in the group, but I think it's also important to mention the elimination of the food waste up front, so you have less that you even need to compost. And we had a few members of our group that they were really instilled with clean plates and reducing that food waste and not wasting any food. So that's another thing we talked about a lot.
Amazing. Congratulations, Claire. Your programs are doing fantastically. How exciting. This is so cool. Okay. Anything else from your side that you guys forgot? Are we okay to do the last group? Okay. I'll add, so our group had a lot of the same things too. And Alex, I'm going to rely on you to wingman me here. I know you're doing 100 things at once, so I just want to be conscious of that. But our group also adds some really cool behaviors as well that actually I myself often forget and I think should be super celebrated because it's unique to Ferndale as well too. We had people in our group who are also thinking of the contribution to fast fashion and the overall environmental footprint that were there. We had people who were talking a lot about buying vintage and thrifting clothes and furniture as a way of reducing the footprint, but also engaging in the local community, which I thought was really exciting. We also had people who were talking about, our group talked about food as well too. So we had people pointing to the vegan diet as also being a great way to reduce the carbon footprint, which was really exciting. But also we became conscious, so I'm glad you guys brought up the newsletter, that people were already keeping track of their energy footprints quite a lot. Audits were done, kind of knowing how much their environmental footprint was happening was definitely something that we were aware of. So I think overall, also the connection between rainwater collection and being conscious of water consumption was something that was super cool to see come out. Also native gardening, sorry, this is one more, but native gardening was so celebrated. It was really exciting to see. Alex, did I forget anything else?
I think that covers a lot of it. I think the only other piece is, a lot of us are finding ourselves working from home more. So that's been a positive thing in terms of, we're not necessarily using our cars, but then also trying to use bikes or other means to do more shopping or other kind of errand type trips, if those stores and services are close by.
Fantastic, thank you.
I just wanted to chime in. There was one thing we forgot to mention. Is Dan still here? I can't see, there are too many people. That the city got a grant for free street trees or free trees. So Dan, can you just unmute yourself real quick and tell the whole group what you told our group? If you don't mind, if he's still there, Daniel. or if anyone else, here he goes.
So during our group chat, it was brought up about basically like a tree planting program that the city could do. Well, the city does have a tree planting program, but one of the differences in this year is that we were able to secure a matching grant from Oakland County Water Resources Commission for tree planting from our old sustainability planner. So what we will be doing with that matching grant is it'll be on a first come first serve basis, but we will be able to plant trees for free instead of charging a cost to plant those trees like we traditionally do on a year-to-year basis. So with that, we are hoping that we'll have 120 residents sign up to get a street tree planted in the right of way free of charge, instead of charging the $175 like we usually do for the sourcing and planting of that tree.
Amazing. What a great case study of success. All right, I'm conscious we're getting close on time, so let's move over to talking about now, what do we want to do? What are the barriers we have to overcome? Before we kick it off, I think we're all going to agree energy was definitely a part of ours, same as yours, but we also got to talk a lot about mobility in our group too. So we'll end it, but let's do the same cadence. Kathleen, let's go back to you guys, to Matt.
Yeah, one thing I can say that we didn't want to do is spend a ton of money that we don't have. We'd love to do it if we had it, but we don't have tons of money lying around. Into that, I think we also found out that we can make small changes that don't cost a lot of money, like tens of thousands of dollars for a solar system, and make a difference still. So that's one thing we did not want to do, is spend tons of money without knowing exactly when the return is going to be and how far the return is. We don't know if we're going to be in our house for the next 7 years. Let me jump back over the notes. Kathleen, do you have another one handy?
I think in general, just kind of going back to that point we made earlier about having city purchasing that's smart and environmentally conscious, and having a preferred list of vendors potentially that could be vetted and have some buying power to help get reduced rates on things. Just in general, like being smart about the money we are spending, and not just producing more waste by replacing things unnecessarily. I know that's not really a weakness, but we've done that.
I would say, like,
we've done wasteful things in the past.
Something we don't want to do is work with the wrong company. And that's like where we talked about potentially having like a list of affiliates or preferred vendors from the city of Ferndale that have already been vetted. Of course, giving anyone the choice to work with whoever they want. But knowing that we are in a complicated situation with energy and efficiency and in complexity, there's companies out there and people that can take advantage of that, especially when we're not in the realm of all the awareness that they have. There's some vulnerability involved. So we don't want to get ripped off or hurt by someone.
Yeah, that's a great point. Ryan, how about with your group? Did you guys have anything else? You and Claire, did your group echo the similar kind of weaknesses and opportunities there?
Yeah, there was definitely concerns about money, but some ideas were raised about, there was a strong interest in having solar panels, just the upfront cost was a barrier. And so the question was raised, is there a way that some sort of collective or package deal could be worked out, thinking about economies of scale where residents could opt into some sort of city program, and what might there be loans or programs that can help mitigate the upfront costs to people. It was also mentioned about composting, sort of the time and the effort that it takes, but I think it was Jen brought up a pretty awesome service in which that she's opted into, in which people can come and pick up her compost. I don't know if Jen is still on the called, don't remember, was it Midtown Composting?
Yeah, that's what it was. They basically, once you sign up, they bring you a bucket that has their logo on it. You fill it up, and once a week they come and pick it up, and you can have as many buckets as you need, or I think they do bi-weekly pickup as well. So it's really great if you
can.
go check
Did
it
you know
out.
you can put food waste scraps in your Sakura yard waste bags? Ew.
You can? I did not know that.
Yep.
I will say, yes, that's limited to fruit and vegetable scraps only, but that is a really great way to begin to compost if you're looking to start to reduce some of your food waste.
So not dairy or meat or anything like that, but fruits and vegetables.
Another thing we did not want to do is replace old, reliable, and dependable stuff, equipment with new, modern, cheap stuff that breaks every couple of years. It came up with like water meters, it came up with window replacements. And it makes sense. Some of the new PVC, thin plastic stuff does not last as good as the old strong wood. And it kind of comes down to also a repurposing of like the fashion. I love that, reusing fashion industry, reusing clothing, and that kind of comes in with recycling as well as repurposing. So putting second use, third use to things. If we don't want to spend a ton of money on solar's been here for over 30 years. How about some of the older modules that still work? Because they still do. Solar panels generally have a 25-year warranty on them.
We actually heard in our group, which was something very exciting, especially for us planners, green design standards and green building standards as a way to make sure that we're being very conscious of the development that's going to happen. And also of ways of making sure that we're equitable for protecting renters. That way buildings are all prepared for kind of all types of residents. I was really excited to hear that.
To share some other exciting news in terms of helping people like participate financially is there are a lot of legislative policies coming through the state of Michigan that's going to support things called like on-bill financing that can get people renewable assets at no out-of-pocket cost. There also is already passed 2 community solar bills that will allow communities to come together, like a minimum of 3 people, and participate from renewable assets that just recently passed. So there is good stuff on the horizon.
Yeah. The one thing that we did hear quite strongly, and I'm curious if you guys did, is an emphasis on mobility and reducing our mobility and transportation emissions. We heard a lot actually about how Woodward is really in the safety of our bike routes actually is something that inhibits people from biking absolutely everywhere. So
absolutely wrong. There are very good bicycle routes. They are throwing a big sales job on you, trying to convince people to bicycle on Woodward. It is a big con job. They had a dumb poll on the Ferndale Bicycle Forum to get the results they want. There are very good bicycle routes that I have been promoting to the Sierra Club Green Cruise for the last 10 years. They go from Ferndale to Birmingham and Ferndale to downtown. There are very good routes around here, and Woodward is a stupid route next to CO2. It's a really dumb route that Melanie Piana is trying to sell you in the Ferndale.
All right, let's try and end on a positive note. And we don't want this to devolve.
I think I saw one more hand up. Was
Can't
that Lynn?
stay positive about everything.
I wanted to share with you guys, because you were talking about vintage clothes, and I was unaware, but those big bins that are by Ferndale Food, they're by the high school, they're all over town that say, you know, donate and it's charitable. What they do with those clothes, you can take, one of the biggest things in our landfills is clothing, and socks are like a huge problem. If you have socks that have holes in them, you can't take them to Goodwill, but you can put them in those bins. Anything that's like destroyed and you can't use it, instead of throwing it away, put it in those bins because they repurpose it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Lynn, for that comment. And as we come to a close, we've got 3 minutes left. I just want to reiterate a couple of the options that we have to talk more about some of the issues that are really close to your heart. We don't have the opportunity right now to go deeply into road diet or Woodward or some of the bicycle routes. However, we do have these mobile engagement kits that are available if you want to organize a small group session in which you can give more detailed feedback to the city of Ferndale about topics that are really close to your heart. So do we want to bring up that final slide that kind of shows the places where people can go to the website? Is that
Go
available?
to planferndale.com, and there are multiple ways that you'll be able to engage on there via surveys, signing up for a meeting, joining the discussion board. All of those links are on planferndale.com. And stay tuned and sign up to have someone come and bring one of those kits to talk about those priorities.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so right now we're actually at time, so we won't be able to take any more questions right now. I'm going to pass it over to
I just
Christina.
have one thing I wrote before.
I think you'll have to wait because it's 8 o'clock. So I'm just going to pass it to Christina or to Katrina to give the final comments. However, please go to the website and you can email us and we can also talk offline more. So Katrina, did you have any final closing remarks?
No, I just wanted to say this is the beginning of the outreach plan. So thank you everyone for coming. We know that this is a passion point for so many of you in the community, and with so many people, we don't often get the chance to hear from everyone in the room. So considering this is the first engagement session, we will have others. As Kathleen and Ryan said, please do get in contact with us. We can dive deeper to exactly those comments that Ryan said that are near and dear to your heart, but we will also be investigating them from a really practical standpoint too, especially those things like financing and the mechanisms that have to deal with just what we physically need to happen to cause that positive change within Ferndale. So thank you so much everyone for joining, and especially thank you to our facilitators for doing such an amazing job, but we really appreciate you taking the time, especially on a Wednesday evening. So hope to hear from you soon, but thank you again for being champions for sustainability, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Peace out, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.